Hello, welcome to the Joyous Journeys in Life and Business podcast, or hello to you if you are watching on Facebook. I'm Sharon Joy, and today I have with me the beautiful Harmony Robinson-Stagg. Welcome, Harmony.
Thank you.
So great to have you on. It's hard to believe that it was almost a year ago now when we first met at Angela Henderson's retreat on the Gold Coast.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I've known you forever. I think just because we connected, and when you really soul connect with someone, you're just like, oh yeah, they just feel like an old friend. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, we hopped on the call like 20 minutes ago and we've just been gas bagging away.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's so great to have you on the podcast. I'd like to, for those of you who don't know Harmony, Harmony is an Ayurveda and integrative health practitioner. She's also a business coach for people in the health and wellness space. As an Ayurveda integrative medicine practitioner and a registered nurse with 17 years experience, her mission is to bridge the gap between Western medicine, Eastern medicine, natural health, and Ayurveda. With her unique approach and extensive experience, she helps women reclaim their health, balance their hormones, heal their gut, and break through burnout so that they can wake up energized, symptom-free, better manage their moods, and feel confident in their mind and body. Through her own personal experience of suffering from anxiety, irritable bowel syndrome, and a hormone imbalance whilst running multiple businesses, working as a nurse, teaching yoga, Pilates classes, and caring for her twin boys, it was Ayurveda and integrative health that helped her achieve more balance in her life and minimize her health-related symptoms. It has become her passion and Dharma to help others live a more balanced and inspired life through an Ayurveda and integrative health approach. She facilitates a 6-month accredited program, the Ayurveda Alchemist, which we'll hear about today, that certifies you as an Ayurveda lifestyle and wellness coach. She's passionate about seeing women achieve health and wellness happiness in all areas of their lives, including their businesses. Through repeated requests from women who she saw with clients get exceptional results and her business growth from strength to strength in an ethical and organic way, she became a business mentor for health and wellness professionals. And she is also the host of the very popular health and wellness podcast called Harmony Inspired Health. Wow, how does that feel hearing that back?
It's like, it made me feel tired.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
As you can hear, I do still stumble over the word Ayurveda, and as much as I've tried to kind of get my head around it, for those who perhaps don't even know what it is, tell us, what does it mean? What does Ayurveda, the word, actually mean, and what is Ayurveda?
Yeah, so you're actually pronouncing it really well. It is a tricky word. It is a Sanskrit word, so it comes from the Sanskrit language. And Ayurveda, it is the original health science and medical system originated in India. It is the word, if you actually break it down, the first part, Aya, means life and longevity, and Veda is science or study. So it translates to the science and study of life and longevity. So it's a natural health approach. However, that's how we sort of see it over here in the West, more of a natural health a natural health approach. However, there is 8 different branches to Ayurveda, and one of those branches does include surgery. So it is very holistic in its approach.
Wow. That's absolutely fascinating. I love that it's, it focuses on life and longevity, as a way of, I guess being vital, that vitality through life, through the ages. Health has been a real focus for you. Obviously, you've got 17 years experience as a registered nurse and, integrative health and so on. Did you feel that this was a calling for you? How did this come about?
Yeah, so definitely. I think, however, it has been trial and error as to where I fit in within the health and wellness sector. So being a calling, it's always, I grew up very wholesome, healthy lifestyle. And I used to always bandage my dogs up and play vets with them. And my mum sort of said, oh, you should be a nurse, because she also loved traveling. She's like, you know, back then nurses traveled a lot, and you could go to London and do a stint, or you could go sort of anywhere and do a stint. And so I don't know why she didn't say I should be a vet, but, you know, so I guess that sort of got into my head, and then I end up doing nursing. But I wouldn't say it was really my passion. I didn't feel like I really belonged in that system. So my journey has certainly evolved from nursing in like public emergency departments and theatre, surgery, to now running an Ayurveda and integrative medicine clinic, which specializes in women's health. So yeah, and I guess just on that sort of calling, like I was teaching a session yesterday in my Ayurveda Alchemist program that you mentioned on Dharma. And I was explaining like your dharmic path and how it can evolve. And when you know that you are truly aligned with your higher self, I think like the other thing to point out is with the word Dharma, we always, I guess, in our minds, we think it just means like purpose and that we have to find and fulfill this great big grand gesture. But it actually refers to a cosmic law of order, which is living the right way to promote inner and outer health. And living your Dharma simply refers to living a truthful existence in accordance with one's nature and acting for the good of all. So when you're doing something that you feel really aligned to all of those aspects, you're on your Dharmic path, whether that be in your career or looking after a child, or, you know, looking after loved ones, or being in a family, or doing volunteer work, whatever that is. When you're feeling in alignment with those aspects, then you are fulfilling your Dharma in that point in time.
Yeah, I really love that, because, you know, so often when, particularly in the personal development space, I'm sure you can appreciate this, we so often hear, you know, that it's often pitched as has to be something so grandiose, and it's not actually the case. Like, you know, if your Dharma is to be a stay-at-home mum and absolutely kick ass at that, then that is life-changing and world-changing right there, you know, like it's often, you know, I know I've talked with some other guests about, you know, the way that you start your day and the way you make the bed in the morning, you know, the way you roll out your yoga mat, you know, that all, I guess, comes back to that whole, you know, it's who you're being when you're doing type philosophy.
Oh, 100%. And the word Dharma, like we're talking about the word Ayurveda, the word Dharma is a Sanskrit word. So it comes from that philosophy, the Sankhya philosophy. And we have changed it, I guess, here in the West to a meaning that has to be, you know, we're always bigger, better, more type thing.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, like with looking up, like I think raising a child and creating amazing good humans is like the biggest dharmic calling, right?
Absolutely.
But you can, that Dharma can also change as you change and evolve. So when your child is first born and you're really, you know, nurturing and looking after that child, in that moment, that's your Dharma. But that might, you know, evolve and move, and then you become really career focused. And I know a lot of your listeners are probably moms, but also business owners, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So you know, you don't need to split your Dharma. It just means like if you can live to that sort of highest level of values in your higher self, like you said, in whatever aspect of your life you're doing, you are living a dharmic path. But when you are doing it, say, through your career or being of service and helping others, you really feel this, I guess, that high, you know, that higher dharmic sort of peak where you're just feeling really pulled, and you know you've got these gifts that you have to share with the world.
And that was you in the area of medicine.
Yeah.
And I guess that leads me to my next question, because, you know, you've had this experience in both Western and Eastern medicine, and, you know, you find yourself in this world where these worlds collide, you know, intersect in a way that has health benefits for people, particularly women that you work with. Tell me what that's like, because I know even in business, I call myself in the messy middle, you know, it's like it's where strategy and alchemy collide is where I sit. And it's often it's a strange place to sit when you're in the middle of two very dominant worlds. So tell me, like, how does that play out for you? I mean, I'm sure you won't mind me saying it, but you're also married to a doctor, right? An anaesthetist.
Yeah. Yeah.
So your family has, a high value on Western medicine, and also yourself with your Ayurveda alchemist program that you've written, which is incredible, that you certify people. Like, what's it like sitting in the middle between these two worlds?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, like the word collision, so it does feel like there can be a bit of a collision, but I'm really trying to change that. Like my mission is about bridging the gap, like just putting a bridge there, and so that we can really offer truly holistic healthcare to our nation. So rather than feeling like the worlds are colliding, having a bridge there that we can walk over and peacefully walk over, and we can refer to each other without the bridge collapsing. And
cross refer.
Yeah. And seeing both sides, like I have been able to witness the limitations in both worlds, the natural health world and the allopathic sort of modern medicine world. And I've seen the wonderful part. So that's why I'm so passionate about integrating these types of medicines. And also, I think what like Ayurveda does really well is it looks at the individual as an individual, and it doesn't just treat symptoms, it goes beyond that. So when we can really look at the person as an individual and treat them in a holistic manner, they feel heard as well. And that's really beautiful. But there is times where they are going to need that sort of allopathic, more Western medicine. So like if they were having, chest pain, I wouldn't be like, I can press on some mama points or acupoints and like tell you what diet and stuff. Obviously, if it was like indigestion pain, we can work that out. But if it was true, cardiac pain, well, I'd be calling my doctor friends and or the ambulance and being like, get over there. Broken bones, arms. Like I'd mentioned, Ayurveda actually had surgery in one of its arms. It had pediatrics, it had geriatrics, it has a lot of different arms that people aren't aware of. However, it's foremost about seeing ourselves as part of nature, not different and separate from, and really being able to align ourselves with the laws of nature. And that includes the circadian rhythm. And what I see a lot in my clinic is women who come in with hormonal imbalances, and the stress and the way that we function in our world today has really sort of knocked that circadian rhythm and balance, out. And I think when we're looking at allopathic medicine, so Western medicine, they're very good at treating acute situations, but sometimes you don't always get the treatment and the answers you need. And you need to look deeper, and you need to really look and understand yourself. And that is where natural health really comes in. And it's also a beautiful preventative medicine. So something that you can always have the skills in and should always look to be able to start or evolve your healing journey.
Yeah. And, I think that's so beautiful, the way that you've described that, because I can really see that where one philosophy meets an edge is where the other philosophy can complement, like the limitations of both is often seen in the strengths of the other side. So, I am vaccinated, and I had, a pretty unpleasant response to the COVID vaccine. And I didn't feel very well for a long time after I had it. And my solution was to turn to natural medicine. And it's been that's really helped me get back on track. It's been that's helped accelerate my recovery after having COVID. And, and these are the sorts of things that, in that Western realm aren't being spoken about. I had to kind of go and seek other support to help bring me back to feel myself again. So I can totally see, you know, how beautifully that they don't have to be colliding. It can be really complementary, which is great. You know, you always blow me away talking about, you know, business and, you know, women in business in particular. You know, you blow me away with the number of balls that you have in the air at any time, because, you know, you've still done the nursing, you go, you know, you support at retreats, you've got your own clinic, you've got your Ayurveda alchemist program, you do business coaching, you're a mum, you're a wife, you've got so much going on. All of the times, and still manage to keep your feet on the ground. How do you manage to do all of the things and yet still have a conscious business design? Because I know that that's something that you also speak about, you know, to your business coaching clients. What are the things when you're setting up businesses, or, you know, yourself in your own business and supporting others? What are the things, the golden nuggets to help us create a conscious business, keep the balls in the air, and not fall apart at the seams?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think it always starts with self-awareness and understanding of yourself, and that's where I feel Ayurveda has really helped me learn a lot about myself. We talk about the 3 doshas in Ayurveda, which you may have heard of, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, and that's looking at the mind-body constitution of an individual and where those doshas play out. So I know that I can be very Vata, which, like, you could even see when the people on Facebook
that's air energy, right?
Yeah, energy, and I'm like, wave my hands and I talk, and I'm talking fast.
I'm told often that I'm a very air person.
Yeah, and the Vata dosha also governs the central nervous system, so I'm a lot more aware of that I can get very burnt out in that way with my central nervous system if I'm not doing things that are going to pacify the Vata, that side of me. But I can also be very Pitta, which is very like structure, organized, driven, passionate, you know, all of those more fiery qualities. So just understanding myself and knowing sort of what dosha is playing out in that time and that day, and where I need to bring in more balance. So I know for me, I really need to have a really good routine. So that a routine, you know, it really helps to settle the central nervous system and our stress response, because it gives us our body and our mind, it knows what it's doing. So I always set out on a Sunday, I write in my diary like all of my appointments, all of like what clients I have where, and if they're coaching clients or health clients, fitting time like the kids' sports and myself. So it's all sort of scheduled. So then I just have to show up for it. And I know with myself, if I've got to flip, because I'm also studying a master's in applied science.
That's right. We forgot to mention that.
So I know if I'm like, you know, been seeing clients and then I've got to go into study mode, I can't just, it's hard just to switch. So I do like what I call micro meditations or breath work, literally for 2 minutes. I reset the central nervous system. I stop, I sit, and I just breathe, and then I feel really, you know, reset, and then it's like my little reset button to then go and move on to the next sort of section of my day. But I always start my day off with movement. For me, that is just so important. I feel like movement helps me, you know, be able to free the energy in my body, but also helps my mind so that my mind can really process the different things it needs to process throughout the day. And I often really reevaluate my goals and my values and seeing if it's really aligned with my Dharma, because, you know, if you're in alignment, you just have that, you know, you have that feeling that this is like, it's flowing and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, even when it feels tough.
Yes, I really agree with that. It's like that fire in your belly that you just can't ignore, you know, it gives you a hunger that even when the chips are down, it's like, you know, we can really rise. It's that Pitta energy that you were talking about for sure when we get clear. I want to ask you, you know, what do you see like this Vata energy? I see it a lot in myself, but I also see it mirrored in my clients, particularly those feminine core beings who actually need some of that pitta energy. You know, I'm hearing the masculine and the feminine there. So it's something that I talk about a lot. You know, do you see that with your clients, particularly, you know, those business owners who sort of maybe all air and no anchoring?
Yeah, 100%. I actually, if I am taking on like a new business client, I quickly analyze in my head, like ask them a few questions so I know what dosha I'm working with, because the way that you work with them and the way their business is going to present and the way that they like do things is going to be very different. So someone who has a lot of Vata energy, like they're the ones that they might have like so many different ideas. They're very creative and they're all gun-ho on a few, like kind of like myself, like a lot
They're
of
probably also manifesting generators.
Yes, yeah, totally. And I heard your podcast on that, and that's what I am as well.
I'm not at all surprised. It's so funny. Like the majority of my clients are manifesting generators, and I just think it's such an interesting human design. Like I love Manny Jennies. That's probably why we get along, because Manny Jennies and projectors are just such a great fit.
Yeah. So like with the Vata, I know that I'm going to have to keep pulling them back. I'm going to have to be like, no, focus on the one thing. And I often refer them to that book, The One Thing, to read, because it's really good for them just to focus on that one thing. Because with that Vata energy, they can go all in and get really flustered and really anxious and really stressed. And then they burn out in that way. And it's not, doesn't have longevity with their business if they're going to keep showing up as very Vata. So we need to learn about ways that we can ground them as a person, but also ground them in their business and anchor them to their decisions and their choices, and really narrow down, like we were speaking about before, their messaging and their offers, and not having to feel that they can, just because they can do a million things, that they have to. And they also can lose focus very quickly. So they've got a brilliant ideas. You see them always launching new products, but then their focus sort of wanes because they get very bored. They don't like structure. They don't like routine, even though that's what they need. And then the pittas, if I have a pitta, they're like, okay, give me the strategy, tell me exactly when and what I should do. And they're great to work with because they go and they do it all, but they can be so judgmental and analytical of themselves, and they can push and overwork, and then they really burn themselves out. And then the kapha energy people, they're more earth energy, right? So they're very nurturing and lovely and grounding, but sometimes they need a bit more of that fire to get them going. They're very slow and steady. However, they do usually have longevity in their business because, you know, slow and steady wins the race, right?
It's like the tortoise and the hare. They're like the tortoise coming up the back.
Totally. So
I really love that. You know, it's so interesting how, you know, all of the modalities really do have so many similarities in so many ways. And, you know, it's definitely, you know, that Vata energy, like you were saying, exactly the pattern that you described is something that I see a lot with women in business. Lots of ideas, want to launch lots of things, get bored. But actually, you know, if they built a moat around a reasonable size selection of things that wouldn't make them bored, then they can, you know, actually manage their energy, still fulfill their Dharma, and, you know, and create an incredibly successful business. You know, if they just created those masculine structures, they don't have to be tight and tiny and rigid like that pitta energy. There is a place where, you know, you can have it all. Do you agree?
Oh yeah. And like Vatas, they come up with such beautiful ideas and very unique. And, you know, that's what you want, that point of difference. So that's wonderful in a business, but I think they are the people that benefit almost the most from having like a business coach that can really like pull them in and ground them and get them back on track. They're like people that also, you know, love traveling and going off and stuff. So it's like, ooh, that'll wind you back sometimes.
So true. I love that. So as well as helping so many women with their health, you are also business coach, which we've mentioned. Given that so many women starting businesses end up stress fatigued, burnt out, I guess I really just want to dig into some of the practical things that my listeners can do to just really stay on track. So what are the most basic? I mean, you've talked about movement and that, making sure that, they're using that natural medicine for preventative burnout, I guess. But, are there some other practical things, that people can implement that's just going to really help them avoid staying out of that burnout and fatigue?
I definitely think with business, like having a good routine for yourself, and it doesn't mean just with your business stuff. So getting up, like we said, talking about movement, or that might look different to different people, connecting to yourself and your breath. I think another really big thing with business leading to burnout is having strong boundaries. And this is something that I really had to work on throughout my business, having boundaries with your clients, having boundaries with yourself, and having boundaries with your time. So I know, some women who just will work to all hours of the night to push and get stuff done. And I used to do that. Like I've had activewear business and all different sort of businesses. And I used to work, when I could, but I've put in like such strong boundaries that like I don't work past 5 o'clock. And that's only on a couple of days a week when the boys are in after school care, when I see clients later. Otherwise it's pretty much like I'm switching off at like 4 o'clock, 3:34, most of the time 3:30, right. Because I know if I don't get that sort of mental break and that rest between days, and I don't really, if I can't be really present with my kids and then take them to their soccer training, then there's that whole mum guilt thing going on, and I'm trying to struggle with being with the kids and doing the work. So having really a routine helps with this, because it helps you set those sort of more physical boundaries, or mentally physical boundaries, I should say. But then also having boundaries with clients if they're contacting you at all different times of the day and night, when you can respond and the appropriate way to respond. Because I know we have like Instagram, we have TikTok, we have Facebook, we have email, I've got my own client portal for all of my clients in my health system. So there's a messaging service on that.
Messenger,
everything. So
Facebook
unless it's
groups.
Exactly. So unless it's like clearly outline what you expect from and what hours that you will reply and where you're going to reply. Like if they start to reply to me and message me on Messenger, I'll try to, revert them back to my client portal messaging system or my business email, just so that it's kept very professional and you can't just be reached at any time of the day. Because if you don't have those boundaries and don't sort of explain them, people don't know them. We can't blame other people for making us feel really burnt out by constantly contacting us if we haven't set those boundaries in action. So I think that's a huge thing, looking at where you can set boundaries with other people, but also yourself with your time, and constantly reevaluating your values and your goals. If you're creating a business, like, why the hell did you create it? Did you create it to feel like crap and burn out and stressed and crying? Or did you create it to create time with your family? Like, be really honest about that and be really honest if you're fulfilling that, right? And then also, are you creating a business just to make a quick buck, or does it really feel aligned with your Dharma and who you are? Because that will always feel a lot easier than if you're just constantly on this sort of struggle street hustling for money, and then get involved in the whole, 6-figure launches and what I should be making, and comparing yourself to other women, because you don't know their situation, you don't know their background, you don't know what support, you don't know their financial backings, you don't know all of the other things they've got.
You don't know the detail, and often that's where the devil is.
Totally.
People who say, 6-figure launches, but that money might come in over 12 months, and when you divide that by 12, that might mean that on average it's not even really $10,000 months, for example. The devil is in the detail, and often when we're you know, that Instagram image that stuff is often, you know, not shared openly. So yeah, I fully agree. That's, you know, that's something that is really huge for sure.
And they
That
may have
comparison syndrome.
yeah, they may have spent thousands and thousands upon ads. Like, you know, they're saying they've earned this 6-figure income from their launch, but they've spent close to 6 figures on ads. So really, you know, their net is maybe $1,000. So it's really the comparison game. It will really rob you of your joy in your business. And often I've had to remind myself of that, and sometimes think I'm just going to put my blinkers on for quite a while. I know they say you should do market research and see what your competitors are doing and how you can stand out, but often that doesn't, you know, serve everyone. We're so individual. Sometimes you do just need those blinkers on for a while if you're getting caught up in that comparison.
I really agree with that, because I think when, you know, there is a time for it, but I also agree that, you know, having time where the blinkers are on means that it's almost like going inward. And when we go inward and really think deeply about what we want to bring forth, that is where our power is. You know, that is where people hear what we have to say, because, you know, we are in such authentic alignment with what we want to bring forth, or our Dharma, or, you know, whatever it is that we're here to create, that, you know, how people would not want to hear that. You know, it's inspiring when you absolutely see someone on fire about what they're doing, and you know that it's authentic. You know, it's such a powerful thing. Harmony, I'd love to find out, you know, something that I struggle with is reversing the effects of stress. Now, my body has a very, very strong trauma response. It has evolved from my teaching career, and it doesn't take very much for my body to be racked with stress. So I feel it in my body. I have body work done every month. Every month I see a chiro, I see a massage therapist. You know, I'm probably not as often as I should go to yoga class, but I do. I go to, again, not as often as I should, but I go to dance or movement classes. I see my naturopath every month. I take supplements. She puts me on the machine and, you know, runs programs on my body and gives me, you know, a tune up with the frequency. I'm doing a lot of things, but I can still feel, you know, whenever anyone who's doing any body work on me, they put their hands on me and they're like, oh, almost cursing at me because of the tension in my shoulders, my neck, and in my body. So it's there. Even if consciously I'm not feeling it, it's trapped in my body. For other women, and I'm gathering that there's going to be plenty listening to this who can relate, how can we reverse the effects of stress that is trapped, for lack of a better word, in our body, and you know, reset that nervous system on a more permanent basis?
Well, firstly, congratulations for everything you're doing, because that is so amazing. And I'm sure if you weren't doing all of that, you would feel the effects more so. So everything you're doing is really good. And what we speak of in Ayurveda is we talk about a buildup of armor. So that could be a physical armor, and armor is a Sanskrit word for basically toxins. So physical armor could be like, you know, digesting your food properly, could be environmental toxins or whatever that is. But there's also a component of emotional and mental armor. And we know that to be true. Like if you get really stressed, you know, some people feel it in their shoulders, you get these tight knots or you get these headaches. This is just a build-up of, jaw, you know, this is a build-up.
I have tinnitus as a result of it. And it's, you know, it gets progressively worse.
This is all emotional armor buildup. And so it's your body's response to then physically manifest somewhere in your mind and or your body. And sometimes it can, if this has been happening for many, many, many years, it can take quite a long time to really rid all of that. But the other thing to remember is that our sensory perception, so whatever we see, whatever we hear, whatever environment we're in, situation, any trauma, it always creates a subtle impression on our mind. And when it has created that subtle impression of in our mind, it can create these stories, and we need to sometimes recreate a new neural pathway.
Yeah.
And so in my like Thrive programs where I see women one-to-one and they have like health issues, like they might come in for gut or hormones or stress and overwhelm, whatever that may be, we do like a limiting core belief session, which is about going deeper into things that could be hindering your healing, which are these subconscious beliefs caused by these subtle impressions left on the mind, caused by viewing or being part of some sort of trauma response. So sometimes it's not just a physical relief. It's really about sort of tapping into
the mindset,
those underlining,
and there's definitely been reframing, because you're right, like neurons that fire together wire together, right? Like we know that, and those neural pathways are very strong. So I have been doing some work around that. I definitely feel for me that there's a buildup of toxins, that I feel that, and we live at, in, well, we use safe, natural products in the home. We don't use toxins, very, very minimally. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. I think that it is something that if people have had trauma, I mean, even from childhood, or, their teens, their 20s, their 30s, and they're in their 40s, that's a lot of stress and trauma to be carrying, and when you said armor, that really struck a chord with me, because I can really relate to that. Sometimes it feels like finally, if I have a deep yin reset, I will feel like that's gone, but it really doesn't take very much for it to fire straight back up. It's like a muscle memory that is just there.
Yes. Yeah, it can take a while, and it's every day can be different, and our body doesn't differentiate the different types of stresses. So whether it's chronic long-term stress, or whether you go out and you're just about to get like a car swipe or a dog chase you or whatever, your adrenals are going to pump out the adrenaline and the cortisol to deal with that, to help your body to bring it so that it can take the blood to the arms and the legs to fight or run or whatever you need to do. But if you're constantly exposed to different stresses, even a full inbox, you're not going to naturally get that sort of adrenaline rush, but you're still going to produce the cortisol, because we don't have like a full inbox stress hormone and a scary dog stress hormone and a past trauma stress hormone. It's the same hormones in your body that are playing out. And if they're constantly playing out day after day because you're being triggered, and that subconscious mind is telling you those, stressful thoughts without you maybe even being aware of it, you're going to start to elevate those cortisol levels. And you can either become very catabolic, so your muscles can break down, or you can become very tight and feel the stress physically in the body. It also, the stress response also uses up a lot of your magnesium stores and your essential minerals and vitamins. So then you can have different sort of symptoms relating to deficiencies. So there's so much that can go on with the body, and I think and the mind, and it's really making sure that we understand that they're so interconnected. It's not like a separate issues. So we always, with Ayurveda and integrative medicine, really look at a holistic approach, and definitely sort of pacifying the vata. If stress is such a high response for you, really pacifying the vata. And one of the sort of very simple treatments we talk about is self-abhyanga. Abhyanga just is like an oil massage. So every morning or every evening before you shower, get some nice sesame oil. You can warm it up and literally start massaging the body. It calms the central nervous system down, but it also moves the lymphatic system. And our lymphatic system has a lot to do with detoxifying the body and the immune system. And another one I really love is I tell my clients, at the end of the day, is to lay with your legs up a wall. And that really helps to connect to, will take you into that parasympathetic state for one, but it also tones the vagus nerve. And that one is really responsible for your stress response as well.
Yeah, that is a fabulous tip. You know, that really is, you know, some really useful things. I know the feet up the wall thing always feels great whenever I've done it at yoga, and it's something that I just don't do often enough. And, you know, I'm somebody that does get in that, you know, work state. And by the end of the day, or particularly, you know, as the week, you know, we get towards the end of the week. I love Fridays. It's probably my favorite day of the week, along with Monday. But, you know, sort of by Thursday night, I can tend to be quite wound up. And, you know, I'm really lucky that I've got a husband that knows and understands a lot of this stuff. And so he's able to, you know, sort of help me help my body to come back to that homeostasis, which is not always easy, you know, like, and I think that this is the thing, I just want to know, you know all this stuff, you teach it, but do you, like, obviously we have to stay tuned in and have that level of consciousness, but do you find sometimes that even still your balance gets thrown out, that you have to kind of be like, whoa, I've gone too far here?
Oh God, yeah. Hell yeah. Vada Pitta, of course. I'm like always like, yes, I've got this idea, or I'm like, you know, push. So yeah, definitely. And when I feel that, that's when I have to really check in. And when we push ourselves to that point, even though we have that underlying awareness, we've actually changed the part of our mind. Like we talk about the hamkara and the buddhi mind and stuff in Ayurveda, like there's different levels of intellect. And we've actually gone out of that, you know, complete awareness to this like conscious awareness, to more of like a unaware conscious state, if that, it might not make sense to some of your listeners who hasn't been exposed to these philosophies, but it's really about, you know, tapping back into that awareness and knowing it and being, you know, strong enough to be able to pause and go, okay, come on, Harmony, you're just like, you're being a knob right now. Like, you know this. And sometimes it's hard to be like, you know, especially if you're so wound up and you're like, I really need to meditate and clear the mind. So when you're so wound up, sometimes meditation's just not the right place to start. No. So what I do is I love walking my dogs and just getting out in nature. So I'll start with that. I'll start with a walk so I can move the emotions and the energy. Like emotions are just energy in motion until they become stuck and we hold them down. And sometimes we need to release that. So I'll walk the dogs, get out in fresh air. Like nature is just so soul reviving. And then I can come back and take a few breaths and then do a bit of a meditation. And it might sound like, if you're a busy businesswoman, like, you know, I don't have the time to carve that out in my day. Like I've got to get this deadline and this. Sometimes it, you know, you can find the time, even if it's just a couple of minutes, because what is happening is your central nervous system is so wired that the type of work you're going to produce isn't going to be great. You're going to have brain fog. If you can just reset that central nervous system by a bit of movement or some breath, things definitely, the
quality of the work's going to be better.
Definitely. But yeah, I trust me, I always have to check myself.
Yeah, I think that's just really good for people to hear, because, you know, so often, you know, I remember I liken this to when I first learned how to meditate. And, you know, people would talk about meditation, and for a long time I thought I was getting it all wrong, because nobody actually told me that people who are good at meditation still have mind wanders. And I think that's why it's really good for our listeners to know that even though you know all this stuff, you teach it, you embody it, that there are still times where it's perfectly normal, even for someone who is so far down this track and so experienced in this space, to have those days where it's like, whoa, like I've gone too far. I'm like totally wound up. I need to reset this and bring it back. So thank you for being honest about that. I think sometimes there's just not enough spoken about that, you know, particularly in the wellness space. You know, I don't hear often wellness teachers saying, hey, like, you know, I fried myself today. Like, you know, I went too far. No. It's pretty big.
Well, we're not all, I was just going to say, we're not all evolved humans, right? That's why we're here. We're learning these lessons to evolve to our higher self. So to come and claim that you're that evolved, that you can just, be and do all that, I find that interesting.
I think it's only ever a journey. It's never a destination. We're only ever just reaching higher and higher. there is no point of arrival at all. We don't ever arrive there where we think we're going to arrive, in terms of, absolutely achieving, that perfect balance. It's only ever something that we can, try and achieve along the way. Harmony, I'd love to ask you the 3 questions that we wrap up with on the show. Firstly, how would your parents describe what you do for a living?
Oh, they would say she does health stuff with women and nurse. I don't know.
Oh, so they know a little bit?
Oh, yeah. No, they get a bit confused. They go, oh, Mum goes, you just do all these different things. She's like Ayurveda practitioner, she's doing acupuncture now, and she's a nurse. So they just sort of, float those things up, I guess.
Oh, I love that they know, because most people crack up at that because their parents just could not actually articulate what they do. So I love that.
Oh, yeah, no, they know.
What has been the most joyous part of your life and business journey to date?
My life or my business journey?
Whatever you like, or both.
Most joyous part, I mean, it's going to sound really cliche, but being with my family. I love my children and I love my husband. So having created something so special with other human beings and soul beings, I think is really, really joyous to me. And then if I'm looking at more of a, I guess, superficial level, you could say, is like, I love like traveling to Bali and doing retreats and all that. And I just feel like so free and so at home. And I absolutely, I really also get a massive kick out of teaching my Ayurveda Alchemist program. Like, I just feel so aligned with my Dharma. So all of those things bring me immense joy.
I love that. And where can the listeners find and follow you, or perhaps book a consult if they're looking for support with their health and hormones? Perhaps if they're a wellness coach or coach in the space who would like to find more out about the Ayurveda Alchemist program or certification, where can we track you down?
Yeah, so if you want to book a consultation with me or inquire about business mentorships, you can go to harmonyinspiredhealth.com.au. So that's my website. Also, the Ayurveda Alchemist program, there is a wait list there for that. That's a 6-month program that certifies you to become an Ayurveda lifestyle and wellness coach. And then my Instagram is Harmony Inspired Ayurveda. That's more of my personal one, and I put a lot of flavor into it within my different offerings. And I do have my clinic one, which is Harmony Inspired Health, but I mainly hang on my Harmony Inspired Ayurveda one. And also that is my Facebook page. And I've got a Facebook group, the Ayurvedic Soul Sister Tribe, as well. So you can go to that. And on my website, I do have a Unlock Your Dharma journal. It's a freebie. So if you go to my freebies page on harmonyinspiredhealth.com.au, you can download that journal. It's just got some prompts there to really, get you in the mindset of like, are you, unlocking this Dharma within whatever you're doing in your business, your career, your life, your family life, whatever that may be for you.
And we'll link all of that in the show notes, so people can grab a copy of that and also find Harmony on Instagram. Harmony, it's been such a pleasure, and it's been too long between drinks. And I say that because we shared a few while we were away, I think.
Yes.
But we definitely look forward to the next opportunity where we get to catch up. And thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Namaste.
It's been such a pleasure.